So, I mean, that's the big thing that artists always face, right? How do I turn my hobby into a business? So you graduated in 2016, but I believe in September 2014, that's when you launched Picoworm. So was Picoworm part of the whole plan? Like, what was the thought process behind that?
Yeah, I would say I have already wanted to plan the whole business. Also, the vision about this. I mean, it's not that clear at first because you have to really experiment what is the market preference and also who is your niche who really would buy stuff like that. So you have to do some testing. So eventually it gets clearer and then you would just make a path out of it.
So how were you doing the testing?
Well, I joined some art market, of course, because you wanted Picoworm to be exposed. So the best way is from social media and also art market, because art market can approach lots of different kind of people. Because by that time, Instagram is not that hot, I would say, just at the beginning stage. So I also do lots of study also about the photography because I realized that if you can't show your work good in vision, people were not interested to look further about this. So I also bought a camera. I don't have much money, but I just do part-time job and save some money to get the tools that I really need to make this business. So by that time, the way I do is really simple. But in terms of marketing, you have to introduce what is miniature art because it's not that popular in Malaysia by that time. You have to educate your user on what is this and why is it so expensive. I would say this is not cheap because it takes a lot of time and effort to do it. So you really have to educate your user. This is in terms of business. But in terms of personal, I really focus in improving my own skill because you can't stop learning when you do in art because there's a lot of different things or I would say new techniques coming in. So you really have to keep yourself improve in order to catch up into that stage. Like I said, you have to find, let's say, your inspiration or your mentor. Like I said, my favorite artist is Tomo Tanaka. So his work always inspired me. And also, I would always tell myself, I really wanted to make as detailed as I can, just like him. So you find a goal, you find inspiration from a person you really like, and eventually you will drive yourself towards it.
Was it hard to raise awareness initially to a Malaysian market that had never seen this before?
Well, I would say yes. And also I joined a art market in Singapore. It's also the same over there, but it's better. I mean, better than Malaysia. But then I remember I was so upset when people can't really understand. But then again, I tell myself, you have to stand firm on what you believe. You have to understand what is your bottom line. What's the thing that you really believe in and you think this is true. So along this way, you just keep telling people, even though they will not agree with you in front of you. But then I think in some point, they will change their mind in some point. So I think I will just do my best to tell them about what I can do and also to educate them about this market. And eventually, you see, the social media start to pop out lots of miniature art and then they accept it. So this is how it works. I mean, you have to stand firm on what you believe and then eventually people will understand that.
Was pricing something that you struggled with? I mean, like, how do you price art, right? It's so subjective. And then you have Malaysians who are like, oh, it's so expensive. And then you'll be like, oh, should I lower my price? But it devalues the worth of my art. How do you think it through?
Well, you it got that point because it's so struggle to actually do this. At first, I was just doing in a simple formula because you just have to figure out what is your material cost and how much time you spend over this project. And then there's a chance I meet with an artist, meet in the internet with him. So he's an artist from Hong Kong. And then his work is so amazing as well. And in Hong Kong, he said that the market over there is also the same. Just same as Malaysia. So the worst part is someone bought his work and then resell it, which is so, I mean, just so bad. This situation is so bad. And then we discussed about pricing. So I have some point from him that you have to know what is your own value. I mean, people can't value you, but you can value yourself. So what is the thing that you think you have put in the most? And you can do some comparison. For example, when I was talking with this artist from Hong Kong, so he just shared with me on what is his pricing. So I would just compare myself with him because I think I'm not as good as him. So he can price in that value. So what about me? I think you can do in this way when you just started to price your artwork. But then eventually, when I improved in my own skill and I put lots of money in refining my own techniques, so you know what effort you have put in. I mean, the one who can understand is yourself. So you can just eventually increase the price or think about some arrow, because sometimes you may make some mistakes. So you have to add in some arrows into that value. So this is how I do the pricing.
Do you remember your first sale and what that was like?
Well, like I said, I was very lucky because I met a guy from the art market. So he's doing on puzzle business and he really loved my artwork and he appreciated it. He said that, wow, I love your work. You will famous one day. I want to buy from you now. Yeah. Then he just told me that, hey, can you help me to recreate this thing from a photo? And then I said, yes, of course. So I just recreate something out of this photo, exactly the same. And then I just charge him a reasonable price and he is okay to it. So I was thinking that actually there's some people, they will buy your work because they appreciate it. But some people, they will just say that this is shit to me, so why I have to pay for it? So there are people who really appreciate your work, but there are also people, they don't appreciate it. So I would just change my mind. So if people, they don't appreciate it, so just beat it, never mind. Eventually, there will be someone really appreciate your work.
Do you ever go through a really tough period where you thought, oh, this is not for me, maybe I should be a mechanical engineer?
Well, I do. That was just last year, I would say. But I never think about going back to engineer. But that was a time I was so confusing, during the MCO. I mean, I was so doubt about myself. And I doesn't know what I can do. I don't know if that is the environment that causes me into this thinking. And then the point when I have opened my mind is that I started to make something I love. I make a scenario about Detective Conan because I love Conan a lot. I mean, since I was young, I love to read the comic. And then even now, I love to watch the movie because they have the movie every year. I was just telling myself, why you choose this path at first? Because you love it. So at this moment, you are so upset, you're so frustrated. Why not you just do something you love? So just forget about any work, forget about the pandemic, forget about other projects. So I just sit down and just do it, thinking back that this was my hobby and then I turn it into a job. So I just found the passion back. I was so happy that I did this because sometimes you just have to go back to the basic. You have to go back to the basic to find yourself.
And wasn't last year the point where you decided to do a theme of recycling all materials?
Yeah, because we were all locked down at home. So I was thinking, why not we just do something out of the materials we can grab everywhere. At the same time, I think lots of other people also having the same problem with me. We are so boring at home. We have nothing to do. So why not we just, try to create something out of the materials from our daily life. This is also the reason why I record the tutorial to share with the others.
So thankfully you continued because I believe last year was when Ryan Reynolds' team contacted you and you appeared in this limited Snapchat show, Ryan Doesn't Know. Can you share with us a bit about how you got involved in his show?
Well, I just received an email one day saying that, oh, that email was from the production team of this Ryan Doesn't Know show. So the production team actually contacted me saying that he was locked down at home because of the pandemic. So he browsed through the internet and found some interesting idea of what he gonna do for this show. So I was very lucky to be one of it. And he just bookmarked and asked the production team to contact me. So I was very, very lucky.
And what was it like filming the actual thing as well and teaching him how to make that little hairdryer?
I actually worried a lot before we start the shooting because I couldn't imagine, because he's funny, he's very interactive, so I am so afraid that I couldn't cope with his joke. I am afraid. I'm afraid a lot of things. But then the worry is just too much because he is so funny. And along the show, the shooting, he makes lots of jokes. And of course, we know that this show is not going to be serious because the team doesn't expect that he can really make a hairdryer. They also expecting that he is making something weird. So I was just there to actually talk to him and teaching him on how to make. Everything else. He just has to figure it out himself. Yeah.
I mean, he had a full array of tools and you said you have more tools than me.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. They actually prepare lots of things for him.
Amazing. So after you appeared, I imagine everyone, all the media must have suddenly noticed you and knew who you were. So how was it like after it was aired?
Well, I was so honored to be there, of course. I mean, I really appreciate that they gave me this chance. I couldn't imagine that an artist like me in Malaysia can be featured in his show. And then, of course, suddenly a lots of media, they actually contacted me. So I was just telling myself that become. Just do what you usually do. Just don't be, don't feel yourself under the spotlight. You just continue do what you wanted to do.
Do you feel like there was a sudden uptick in demand for your work?
Yes, it is. I'm really happy for this because at least during this time, I keep working on different projects. So you don't have to worry about whether the sales is going down or what. But then I also wanted to give myself some break. I wanted to do something I love. So let's say some projects that is not really attract me, because I have get a project to do miniature leather bag. But then the company, they actually using the real animal leather. So this is what I'm not really supporting. So I would just reject this. You have choices. I mean, at least after this exposure, you have choices to say no to some certain project.
People who want to be miniature artists, what do you think is the thing that they should be aware of before becoming a professional miniature artist?
You have to be patient because you are turning your hobby into a full-time job. So that means you are working on miniature at all times. And especially this thing, it takes lots of time. So you doesn't have time to think about the other thing. You have to take care of your own body because especially your eyes, you keep focusing on small things for such a long time. So I actually eat carrot every day. Seriously. for real. I eat carrot every day because I wanted to protect my eyes. And then sometimes when I cook myself, I am such a bad cooker. Sometimes I cut my own finger, which is really bad because you have to work on miniature and your eyes are the most precious thing. So you have to protect them really well.
Imagine you must give your hands a break sometimes, right? Otherwise it would cramp.
Yeah. Yes, correct. I mean, when I was doing this at full time for the first, so there's once I was filing on the wood and I didn't notice it takes such a long time. And then when I just leave the filing tool, my hand was trembling, which is so scary to me. I was like, I know this is your job, but you can't do this to yourself. So you have to relax. You have to give yourself a break. And there it goes into time management, which is so important. It's such an important subject to me, to a self-employed artist. So you have to really arrange well your own schedule, what is important to do first and what is not. and which thing you can say yes and which one you can say no.
I mean, you run your own business, as you say, and your work is very solitary. And you never actually went into the corporate world. So was it difficult for you to find a community around you that you could work with and get to know and collab?
Well, I would say because nowadays we are living in a social media world. So because of the social media, I have the chance to actually collaborate with some companies. So I never really approached them myself. I mean, because sometimes I think if we are doing it for commercial purpose, so it has to be for some certain project, for example, for advertising, for poster shooting, whatever it is. So I would just leave this to those advertising or marketing company, because at first I actually had collaborate with some advertising company. So when they have the job, when they have the opportunity, they would just call me. And then eventually you spread this name. I mean, because Malaysia, at this moment, Malaysia still doesn't have a lot of miniature artists. So when they really need one, so I am the one that can pop out immediately in the internet. So they can find me easily. So I think at this moment, it's not difficult for them to find me if they really need miniature props for any commercial purpose.
And 2021, you have started this 52 weeks of art. How did that come
Yeah.
about?
Well, because last year I wasn't really creating something new, because as I said, I was kind of frustrated during this pandemic period. So I wasn't really creating much as I expected. So this year, 2021, I think, why not I push myself further to create something like every week instead of doing projects for work. So why not you choose some tiny stuff? I mean, anything, it can be anything. So I have already some plans about this. So why not you choose some little things to make out of your own favorite stuff lah. I just wanted to make something I love, a tiny one that is enough. I just wanted to push myself a bit further and also a bit more active on doing miniature. So because sometimes the work I do for commercial purpose or even some personal collection, I couldn't reveal it. So which is so sad. I wanted to make myself more active and also sharing more works to the public, to actually inspire people that even though we are in the pandemic right now, we still can set a goal for ourselves and keep doing this.
I mean, you say it's small art, but you were making things like a whole box of oranges that were wrapped in plastic. You were making a whole pencil box set, a bunch of paint set. I mean, that's so much work, so much intricacy involved. So were you setting aside a lot of time for these personal art projects?
Well, it normally takes a day, seriously, at least a day to two. So I would do this during the weekend or when I was free at night. I mean, sometimes after the dinner, I would just sit down to do a little bit of it before I go into the couch and watch the TV. I have some free time. So I would just do this during the free time. So I would just do this thing during the free time. But at least I have the goal for this year. I wanted to create 52 artworks during this time, just to keep myself remember that you love this thing and you will never forget what is your initial goal to do this job or to go into this hobby, because you know what is your passion about this thing.
So I previously interviewed an artist, Red Hongi. She was episode 2. And she also went through this period where she was like, oh, I want to be more creative, do something personal. So she started a series of food art projects and it was just personal, did it every single day. And she said, I felt more creative at the end of that process. Do you feel the same way as well?
Yes, I do. I mean, because you are not doing this for job. You are doing this for your own. You just wanted to relax yourself. You just wanted to immerse yourself into the creating process. So I think when you set a personal project, it is also a process of healing from your frustration. So this is how I see these 52 projects. Like I said, I was so frustrated last year. So I just wanted to set a clear goal for myself this year.
So you started when you were 14. You have been doing this for more than a dozen years now, a very, very long time. Have you
Yeah.
projected into the future and thought of what you want to be? What is that ultimate goal?
I have lots of favorite artists from around the world. So I wanted to be like them. Like for now, I wanted to actually go to join, there's a group called IGMA. So IGMA is the International Guide Miniature Institution. So this institution, they actually have a lots of master teaching, lots of professional, I mean, even more professional skill on making miniature in a really specific thing. Like they have woodworking, metalwork in miniature, which is so specific. So I actually wanted to save money and join this group one day and also learn more professional skills. And I wanted to hold an exhibition one day for myself. But for now, I think I don't have enough artwork. So I just wanted, I'm giving myself about 3 to 5 years to actually build a lot more projects for my own. And then eventually I can collect enough amount of the artwork to do the exhibition.
It's such a joy to hear you being so passionate about what you're doing, which you discovered when you were so young. What is the best way for listeners to support what you're doing?
Well, I think sometimes I find really happy just looking at their inspirational comments because you know that there are people actually supporting you. They really like your work. And sometimes you even think that they are inspired by you. You know, sometimes I found out secondary school students or even some of my friends, they are giving their kids doing some craft, miniature craft. So they told me that it was inspired by me. So I was so happy that because I am here to actually inspire the other, just like how Tomo Tanaka inspired me. So I really wanted to, give some other people that inspiration to do what they love to do. So yeah, I would say as long as they are supporting me from the social media, they are giving me kind words, that is more than enough to me. Because, at least I know that there are a bunch of people actually love my works, and this is what drives me keep going on this thing.
Well, Pui Wan, it's such a pleasure to have spoken with you. I normally end all of my interviews with this question. So for the first one is this: do you feel like you have found your why?
Yes, I do. Obviously, I found my own why, that I know clearly what is my passion, what I am doing for my whole life. I have decided when I was in a young age that I wanted to be a miniature art for my whole life, and I did it. So I think that when you set your own goal, you found yourself that you are driven at all times. So at least you are not confusing on what you like or what you doesn't like, because lots of people, they actually doesn't know their own why. So at least I found my own why, which is my passion. This could be my best decision ever, I would say.
And what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
Well, I never thought of this, but I really hope to inspire the young generation. So, in these days, people just tend to keep active. They active in the social media, but they don't really goes into something. I would say art and craft is a good process to find yourself, to keep yourself in a peace. You can spend some time to yourself, talking to yourself and understand what do you love. So I think if I could give the inspiration to the young generation, I think that would be the best thing I could leave for them.
And what do you think are the most important qualities of a successful person?
I think persistence is quite important. Like I said, when I found my passion, I have never thought of doing other things other than miniature art. I was locking myself into this path because I just wanted to do this. I have a really clear mind and I persist to do this until I achieve it. So I think persistence is pretty important.
And where can people go to connect with you, find out what you're doing, and buy your work?
Well, I have an Etsy shop, but then because I have some other jobs pending, so I have to close it at the moment. But normally, you can just send me an email you can just send me an email of what you wanted to do in miniature art. So you can send me pictures so we can discuss further on it. So of course you can find me from the social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.